I was reading and preparing for this little set of homilies that I'm going to do. There's going to be 3 homilies, this one, the one tomorrow, and then the one Sunday, and all centered around this idea of Holy Theophany and what its purpose is and what its meaning is. And so as I kind of said a little bit in the email that I sent out, I think there's 3 really important factors that Theophany brings to us as Christians. And the first one I want to talk about this evening is the fact that the Holy Theophany reveals the Holy Trinity. And not even more than that, and this is a little bit to twist your melon a little bit, okay? I want to read from just a little paragraph from this book called Orthodox Theology by Vladimir Lossky, and he says this about this very thing, about this revelation of God. And listen closely to this. God speaks to us through his Son. The incarnation accomplishes the revelation. It reveals and it constitutes revelation itself. Now that, for a moment, really got me thinking, right? So, God is not just revealing himself. He is revelation itself. It's kind of like I have this ongoing theory that problem with the world is not all the messages, although they can be bad and good, but the medium itself is the problem. And so if you take that and apply that to this idea, God himself is the very revelation, right? He is the way in which everything is revealed. It kind of opens it up. Let me read on. To think theologically is not to think of this revelation, but to think by means of the revelation. So he's saying that God is not just revealing himself, God's revealing revelation, period. That all revelation comes from God. The fathers often invoke our philosophy. In fact, the method of this philosophy, which properly denotes theology, is based on an approach opposite to that of speculation. So it's not about imagination. It's not about thinking what you think it might be, but it's the reality of it, right? The realness of it. Theology starts from a fact, revelation. God has spoken to us finally through his Son, it says in Hebrews. The philosophy which speculation on God starts, on the contrary, is from an idea, right? Somebody has an idea. I want to invent a religion. So I'm going to start my own religion. Actually, this is what they did back in the early days around the time of Abraham. When a state or a city would start and the city would start to grow, they'd create their own god. There's one city called Asher that actually created their own god. They said, well, we don't have our own god, so let's make up our own god. And they did. And they called it Asher, the god Asher. And it was, you can look this up about this town. And you're thinking, how in the world did they just create a god? Well, it's because it was a god of their own ideas. It wasn't the true and living God, right? The true and living God is the one who actually reveals himself to us. And he goes on to finish and say this. For the theologian, the point of departure is Christ, and the point of arrival is Christ. So where you leave from and where you go from. And this is something that Orthodox Christianity offers that kind of is strange here in the West, is we approach this from an Eastern point of view, you know? We come from it from a more circular and non-linear thinking, right? And so this is what helps us understand. So all I want you to remember for tonight is that God is revelation himself. He is the very revelation. So that's the first lesson, okay? We'll talk about the other two in the next couple of days, okay? Christ is baptized in the Jordan, and we with him.